Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Wynna Wong. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Community vaccination centers to provide Sinovac Jabs for children as young as 5 next week. No new local COVID case in Hong Kong today, but another cargo aircraft cleaner tests preliminary positive. And Novak Djokovic is back in detention as his visa controversy overshadows the Australian Open. Health experts have urged Hong Kongers not to underestimate the dangers posed by the Omicron COVID variant. This comes as the city strengthens its defenses against the virus, with primary school children soon becoming eligible for both Sinovac and BioNTech vaccines. Isaac Lee reports.
Chief Executive Carrie Lam said earlier this week that outreach teams will be sent to schools to vaccinate children aged between 5 and 11 after the Lunar New Year. This morning, the man tasked with monitoring vaccination arrangements said children will be able to get jabs as early as next week.
下個禮拜咧都會開放就疫苗中心。
Civil Service Secretary Patrick Nip said there are plans for 400,000 students to get Sinovac doses in community vaccination centers or private clinics. The government is also following up on suggestions by experts to offer BioNTech shots to children in the 5 to 11 age group. But those opting for the Pfizer-manufactured vaccines may have to wait until early next month. That's because some vaccination centers will have to switch to serving only those under the age of 11 to ensure doses are not mixed up. Young children will require just 1/3 of BioNTech dose. Experts, meanwhile, have defended the decision to extend social distancing measures for another 2 weeks.
疫情係未受控嘅。
University of Hong Kong Public Health Professor Gabriel Leung said the pandemic is not yet under control, since the reproduction rate of the Omicron variant is still high. He rebutted claims that Omicron has a mild impact, saying the highly contagious strain has caused high mortality rates and severe complications in countries with aging populations and low vaccination rates. Isaac Lee, HKIBC.
The government is confident that the vaccination rate will increase as more people sign up for jabs. This comes as Health Minister Sophia Chan warned of silent carriers. Chloe Feng reports.
During a radio show this morning, Health Chief Sophia Chan noted that while some Omicron patients in Hong Kong showed symptoms, but many cases around the world are asymptomatic. That could mean that some cases have yet to be detected, and there could be a silent transmission chain in Hong Kong. Chen is encouraged by the growing number of Hong Kongers getting jabbed, but hopes more people over 80 will be vaccinated.
Every day there was about 40,000 people who have been doing vaccination, be it the first dose, second dose, or the third dose. So we see the elderly population vaccination rate increased as well. But we hope, especially those who are over 80 years old, which the vaccination rate is only about 25%, will increase.
Chen hoped that in-person classes for younger students will resume next month.
Obviously, we hope if the decision will be made by the Education Bureau, but I'm sure with the success of controlling the epidemic in Hong Kong, hopefully, after Chinese New Year, I'm sure many of our different activities can be resumed.
As part of the campaign to stop Omicron, primary schools, kindergartens, and childcare centers have suspended face-to-face classes until after the Lunar New Year. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Hong Kong had some relief today as there wasn't a single locally transmitted COVID case, but a second airport cleaner tested preliminary positive. Isaac Lee reports again.
Questions have been raised on whether airport workers have enough personal protective gear. This came after a cargo plane cleaner was listed as preliminary positive today. Another cleaner was confirmed to have the virus 6 days ago. The second case is a 41-year-old woman who lives in Chenghan Estates in Qingyi. She recently went to a fast food restaurant and a wet market in the estates. The cleaner was found to be preliminary positive yesterday during her regular compulsory tests. Health authorities insisted that high-risk airport staff have adequate protective gear, but said they may need some guidance.
For the aircraft cleaners, I think we need to step up the infection control training for them to make sure they gang and degang the PPE in proper procedures.
There were 5 confirmed cases today, 3 imported and 2 import-related. They include a Penny Space security guard who tested preliminary positive yesterday. Another confirmed patient is an 85-year-old man living in North Point's Maple Garden, where a vertical transmission was detected earlier this week. His son and wife were diagnosed with the virus earlier this week. Authorities have still to confirm whether a food panda delivery man, who was among yesterday's confirmed patients, is a repositive case, as his samples were negative yesterday and today. Isaac Lee, HKIBC.
The Omicron variant has made its way to Zhuhai, prompting the cancellations of all flights from the southern mainland city to Beijing. Mass testing in Zhuhai uncovered 7 COVID cases yesterday. Preliminary genome checks indicate they are of the Omicron variant. Mainland authorities isolated Zhuhai by suspending transport links. Its neighbor Macau halted service at its Wanzai port. Across the mainland, locally transmitted COVID infections fell to 104 yesterday, from 143 on Thursday. Governments around the world are taking further steps to drive up vaccination rates to curb Omicron. Singapore has made it a must to get jabbed in order to work.
In Singapore, the vaccination push has now turned to shove. From today, workers who have not had a jab may face the sack, as negative tests will no longer be accepted. Employers can consider switching unvaccinated staff to positions that can be done from home or put them on no-pay leave. Anyone sacked for refusing to be vaccinated will not be able to challenge their bosses for wrongful dismissal. Around 98% of Singapore's workforce have been vaccinated, but some 52,000 people have not had a single dose. Meanwhile, shops and bars in a southern Dutch town have reopened, with residents flocking to eat and drink at outdoor tables. Valkenburg decided to openly defy government restrictions imposed 1 week before Christmas. Despite Prime Minister Mark Rutte slowly easing the tough rules starting today, bars, restaurants, museums, and theaters will remain closed. Officials say the lockdown will buy time for overburdened hospitals. But people in towns like Valkenburg are an example of growing frustration across the Netherlands. Brazil has started vaccinating children aged 5 to 11, despite the disapproval of President Jair Bolsonaro. He said he will not let his 11-year-old daughter get a jab, citing side effect worries. And in the United States, there was a major blow for President Joe Biden after the Supreme Court stopped one of his biggest vaccine mandates. Biden ordered companies with 100 staff or more to have all their employees vaccinated. The conservative heavy justice panel dismissed the plan, but allowed a more limited mandate requiring health workers at facilities receiving federal money to be vaccinated.
Back locally, 15 people were rescued when a scuba diving expedition off Sai Kung ended prematurely after fire engulfed their yacht. The 3-level yacht was in Lobster Bay when it was badly damaged by the fire at around 4:30 p.m. All on board the 50-foot vessel were rescued unhurt by a passing boat and taken to the Marine Police base. Earlier this morning, a short circuit is believed to have caused a fire on another yacht at the Kuntong Typhoon Shelter. A 49-year-old man on board managed to escape. 7 people have been jailed for clashing with police at the Polytechnic University 2 years ago. They were among 9 defendants driven to the district court this morning. All 9 were convicted earlier of rioting and possessing offensive weapons near Gascoigne Road in Hung Hom in November 2019. Judge Josiah Lam sentenced 7 of them to between 38 and 40 months in jail as a deterrent. But 2 men, both aged 20, were sent to training centers to give them a chance to reintegrate into society. A tsunami has hit Tonga following a massive underwater volcanic eruption. People across the Pacific island nation reported hearing the loud boom of the volcano erupting. Various videos on Twitter purportedly show people trying to flee from coastal areas as water began crashing through beaches and into neighborhoods. The eruption of the Tonga Ha'apai volcano sent shockwaves across the South Pacific. North Korea claimed that it has test-fired 2 missiles from a train. The missiles traveled east for about 430 kilometers. Pyongyang said the exercise was aimed at checking the efficiency of what it calls its railway-borne regiment. The latest missile launch came after the United States imposed new sanctions in response to earlier tests. On to the weather now. There will be sunny periods tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 18 and 21 degrees. Expected to be cloudy with a few rain patches after the weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that's our main news for Saturday night. Join us for more news at 10. I'm Wynna Wong. Good night.